Hello, I'm Chris Sanchez, and welcome to Sonoma Views, where we talk about property management, real estate, restaurants, food, what's going on in Sonoma County, and everything in between. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you find benefit and value to these videos. At the end, if you'd like to receive future notifications of future videos, please subscribe or click the little bell icon, and you will receive further updates and alerts. So, today's topic, I'm going to dive into property management and landlording, specifically regarding co-signers or guarantors. Should you allow your tenants or applicants to use co-signers when they're applying for one of your rental units? All right, I am in, first of all, Sonoma County, California, so this is just operate based on California laws. I don't know what it's like in other states. But I'm in Roanoke Park, and between Roanoke Park and Cotati, we are in College Town. Sonoma State University is over here. And there are a lot of young people, college students, who live in the area. And there are a lot of rentals in Roanoke Park, Cotati area. And now we actually have a train as well. The SMART train railroad between Sonoma County and Marin County. So there's... the infrastructure is there, and it makes it even more convenient for people who want to live in the area or sometimes live out here and work outside of the county. All right, so digging into co-signers, should you allow people to apply with co-signers to rent your rental properties? I can tell you is that there is no right or wrong answer that I found. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of pros and cons. And hopefully you can hear okay. Getting on the freeway and Chevy V8, gotta love it. Getting on the freeway is the best part. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's just a matter of pros and cons. So, and those pros and cons are going to be you're going to outweigh those, the cost versus benefit, based on your own goals and objectives. All right. So one, depending on the type of rental property that it is, I will tell you that it is most common to find, people who want to use co-signers or guarantors to apply for a place if it's a smaller unit, such as a studio, a one-bedroom apartment, maybe a two-bedroom apartment, maybe even a three-bedroom apartment or a condo, townhouse, where not always, but many times it's going to be younger people who do not have established employment, they don't have established credit, they don't have established income, they don't have established rental history. Maybe it's the first time going out on their own. That's what happens with young people. Maybe they're 19, 20, and they're moving out of the nest and they want to move in with the boyfriend, girlfriend, or they just want to go get a studio and rough it on their own, which is awesome. I high five, fist bump to all those young people who want to go out and get their life started and see what the real world is about. So that's one segment. The other segment of the prospective tenants or the applicants who need a co-signer are people who either have gone through a rough patch, maybe there was a previous eviction or recent foreclosure or recent bankruptcy. Something happened. Life happens, shit happens, and some things are unexpected, such as a job loss, or somebody getting into an accident and becoming hurt or disabled or ill in some way where their income or their earning capacity has gone down. Sometimes it's a loss of a spouse or another household income earner. You never know. There's a lot of scenarios. So, and those people, their credit might suffer. In the immediate short term, their credit might suck. Or somebody, relocating to the area and maybe they're, just starting to look for work here. They have money in the bank, but they don't have a secure job now, but they have money in the bank. Lots of different scenarios. So that's kind of the two, or actually three. I take that back. Three types or classifications of people off the top of my head. You have the younger people who are just starting out or full-time students. So you have younger people starting off. You have people who just went through something major, life happened to them and just really sucked. And then you have the third group, where it's just no matter what, that's who they are. They're going to have bad, horrible credit history. They're sometimes, they're going to be on, government programs, government assistance. I don't know. It could be just not having the job, maybe not having the ability to earn, or just, poor money habits, bad credit, collections, etc. And you know what I'm talking about. So there are some people who are just, no matter what, they're not going to change. That's who they are. But some of those folks or families may have horrible credit history, and maybe they don't pay, they rack up consumer credit cards, or small things. They spend more than they should, but their payment record or rent payment is solid and it's the first thing they pay, and then I guess they blow everything else off. So anyway, you do have those people, and then you have the class D type credit people who are just they're an eviction waiting to happen, and they've gone through evictions and they have no other choice. They have nowhere else to go, and they looked at your rental unit and they want to apply, and they want to see if you'll give in, and they'll offer you more money as rent, they'll offer you more money as security deposit, and then of course naturally they're going to ask if you can take a cosigner if in fact they have somebody who's willing to step up and vouch for them and be financially and legally responsible for them. Okay, all right, so back to the original question: should you allow it or should you not? Well, pros and cons. One, you do not need to allow cosigners, and by not allowing cosigners, what you're saying is anybody who applies for my rental unit, I'm looking for a responsible a responsible person who's a financially responsible adult, and in order for them to qualify, they have to meet the minimum credit and income requirements. They have to stand on their own 2 feet. They have to qualify based on their own merit. If they screwed up their credit history or something else, it's their own fault, and I'm only looking for the person who could qualify on their own with no third-party support, no third-party guarantor. Okay, and that's fine. And what you will find is you will be marketing your unit or catering towards maybe potentially a family, a larger family who has kids, depending again, granted the type of rental unit that you have, but possibly a family, maybe a working couple, maybe a professional single person or a couple, somebody who's stable, has stable employment, stable housing history, whether it be rental history or a mortgage history. Believe it or not, there are a lot of tenants who are previous or current and former homeowners, and then some of them are current and former landlords themselves. So I got people who are well qualified they're renting for a reason, and it's a choice. They're doing it as a choice, not as a last resort, and they have their own reason for wanting to rent versus owning real estate at the present time. So that could be for a number of reasons. So anyway, don't overlook that. All right, so they meet the credit and income requirement. What should you require for credit and income requirement? It is up to you, depending how lenient, flexible you want to be, how much you want to open up that gate. For the rentals that I manage, I have a 650 minimum credit score, and we run a tenant screening report, and it generates a FICO score, which is a Fair Isaac company. That's the FICO score. That it generates one score, and that's what we use based on qualifying. 650 score or higher, and the income requirement needs to be 2.5 times the monthly rent or higher. So that means if the rent amount is $1,000, simple numbers, if the rent is $1,000, then the applicant must document and provide income showing that they make at least 2.5 times greater, which is $2,500. It's $2,500. Okay. If they meet those two requirements, then we do the background check and rental history and whatnot. If they do not meet those requirements and you do not allow cosigners, then end of story. They do not qualify, issue a decline letter. I'm sorry, you do not meet our minimum requirements, and you move on and show it to other people. All right. So it purposefully limits the amount of people who apply for your rental, as long as they know what the requirements are and they don't help you. It's less work on you as a landlord. So if they think they meet the qualifications, they apply. If they make the cut, then you can extend the rental. If they do not, you can just disqualify them. End of story. It's very black and white, cut and dry. And by not allowing cosigners, again, you're looking for somebody who is financially stable and responsible, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? If you do allow cosigners, you will likely have more people who apply. So that means you have a bigger pool of prospective tenants. You may get people who currently have bad or previous bad history with credit or income or employment or spotty. There's less stability per se. Potentially you would open it up to someone who's just getting started. Again, maybe 19, 20-year-old person, someone going to school part-time or going to college full-time, and then they have another full-time job. You name it. You may attract somebody like that. You may attract somebody who comes from maybe a younger person who comes from a wealthy family. They're well off, and this person is fortunate that they get to go to school, paid by parents, full-time, and then just maybe carry a part-time job and get tips, whatever, and make their way. So in opening it up to cosigners, you could have potentially rent the place quicker, and then you open it up to potentially parents or close family friends or a family member who's willing to say, hey, I'm willing to vouch for this person. I will be the guarantor. I guarantee the payment of the rent. I vouch for them, and you put them on the lease agreement. They're equally financially responsible. So there you have it. Now, which sounds positive, right? Now the downside to that is if you have a cosigner involved, they are now involved. And that means you are not only dealing with your resident, the person occupying your one-bedroom apartment. You are not dealing with mom. You're now dealing with dad. And they've been around the block. They're older, they're smarter, they're wiser. Potentially they are a working professional, maybe a doctor, maybe a lawyer, maybe a property manager, maybe a real estate broker. They could be a landlord, and either they know it all or they think they know it all. Whatever. They might have a great attitude. They might not have a great attitude. They might try to tell you how to do your job and tell you you're wrong. They could question all your policies and your rental agreement, whereas the son or daughter moving in, they're 19, 20. I just want a place to stay, man. I want to move in with my roommates, or I want to move in with my girlfriend, and I want to live downtown, and I just want this little place, and I know I don't have the best credit, and I appreciate the opportunity. I'll take care of your place. Which the son might be fine, but you get grumpy older parents or grandparents who are co-signing, and you have to deal with them. So just a fair warning, dealing with parents as co-signers is not always it's not always a fun time. It just depends on who you get. I've had co-signers who are just awesome. They get it. When their kid screws up, they know it. They get it. We talk eye to eye and say, hey, it's just a kid. I mean, they're legal adults, but it's just a kid. They don't know any better. I know they screwed up. I know they had beer cans outside. I know they did this. You shouldn't have let that dog in here and let his buddy smoke weed. So yeah, I'm going to make it right, and whatever. I've already talked to them. So the parents get involved. They interject, and they help co-landlord, if you will. So I've had that, which is awesome, because they understand. We're talking business here and life lessons, whereas the younger people just don't have those experiences. The other ones are when you have, again, adults, maybe families who just went through a hard time. Their credit sucks, and they would not qualify based on anybody else's standards. The credit is shot, but they have income, they have a job, and you could prove it and double down and say, all right, let's get the cosigner in here. Or I'll have current tenants who I have a great working relationship with. They have a good rental history with me, and they have a family member who's just having a hard time finding a rental in a tight housing market, and say, hey, look, my brother's looking for a rental. He can't get qualified. Could you help me out? I'm willing to co-sign for them. So at that point, I will consider, not guaranteed, don't quote me on that. I will consider, say, okay, never had a problem with you. You've been a great tenant for the past 3 years. I know where you work. I know your income and all that good stuff. And if you're willing to, I'll rent to your brother, but you are going to be on the rental agreement. You're going to be equally responsible, and I'm going to treat you just the same. If he screws up, you're going to know about it. And if they get evicted, or you're getting evicted, and it's going to ruin your chances with your own rentals in future references. So just shoot straight with them. So those are the good and the bad of it. The other positive is if you open it up to co-signers, potentially, you might be able to rent, say, a 3-bedroom house. You might be able to make more money off of it, rent it for a higher rental amount by renting it out as a roommate situation. Now, not necessarily students, please don't quote me on that, but in Rohnert Park, Cotati, there are a lot of student housing, if you will, college rentals. Whereas, let's use simple numbers. If you have a 3-bedroom house and you rented it for $3,000, potentially you could get 3 single girls or 3 single guys who want to go in, and 3-bedroom house, they're paying $1,000 each. Easy peasy. Many times the parents are, co-signing or just outright paying the rent for them. It's not a problem, and that ends up working. So you could potentially get higher gross rents, gross revenue out of your investment property. The downside to that, so that's a plus. The downside to that is you have co-signers, potentially 3 co-signers. So you could have 3 residents plus 3 parents, 6 people on your lease agreement, and hopefully those 3 residents get along with each other. They don't get into catfights and drama, and then hopefully the parents don't get involved and interject, and then, or you have drama between parent co-signers where my daughter did this, I don't like your way your daughter's doing that, and now the parents are into it, and now you have a 6-person bowl of drama. But you make more money every month because you are able to rent it higher as a shared rental per room type scenario. The other side of that, no co-signers. If the people want to qualify, they qualify based on their own credit and income. No parents involved, just dealing directly with the legal adults and figure it out. Now that same house, instead of renting for $3,000, potentially it rents for $2,500, because that's what the market would bear for somebody who is financially qualified to rent those space. They may take it, they may not. Whether they're students or not, it does not matter. It's just based on credit and income and whether or not they qualify and meet the minimum requirements. Okay, this is getting long. We're at 17 minutes now. Thank you so much for watching so far. The last final point. If you're going to consider using a cosigner, I would recommend that you also consider not including a cosigner, but simply requiring a higher security deposit for your applicant. And that is an awesome alternative. If you have somebody who's borderline, maybe they have a 620 credit score, but you require a 650, they just don't make that your credit requirement, but you have a good feeling about them, you feel it's a solid bet. Well, rather than rejecting them, especially if you're sitting on a vacant property, it's empty, and you want to get that rented, and you're coming up to the end of the month, come on, how much longer do you want to wait? Depending on your rental, it's costing you $50 a day, $75 a day, $100 a day every day that it's vacant. You're not collecting that rental income. So if you have somebody who looks good, smells good, they seem respectful, you think that they're going to take good care of the property, you have a good gut feeling about them, but they just don't meet your requirement, and you could, I may consider getting a cosigner just so you could offset that risk, or you may provide an alternative, which would be a counter offer, if you will, or alternative terms. I'm sorry, you do not meet the minimum credit requirements. As an exception, I would be willing to entertain it by doing a larger security deposit. And if you take a larger security deposit, the maximum you could rent, California law here, the maximum you could rent is, collect security deposit is 2 months of the rent payment, equal to 2 months rent. So if the rent amount is $2,000, you could request up to a $4,000 security deposit, which would be the maximum allowed by law to offset your risk, because maybe they default, they don't make payments, and you're going to have to end up in an eviction situation, potentially. And that is for vacant, unfurnished rental units. Vacant, unfurnished rental units, maximum 2 times rent. If it is fully furnished, you can request a security deposit equal to up to 3 months of the monthly rent. So if it's a $2,000 rental, you can potentially request up to $6,000 as a fully refundable security deposit. It's excessive, it's high, most people may not willing to pay for it, so do what the market will bear, but that'll give you something to think about. So if you're borderline and you want to get a place rented, consider cosigners to offset your risk, but also consider just doing a larger security deposit to offset your risk, because you will be holding more money in case the tenant skips on you, doesn't give you a 30-day notice, they bail, you're stuck with the property, and you still have enough money to cover the mortgage payment. Or if they bail when it doesn't end up being a good move out, you have more money on hand, so you could deal with cleaning, missed rent that's due, cleaning, maintenance, repairs to get that place turned around, because you took a gamble on a higher risk. So no right answer, just a lot of different things to consider. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chris Sanchez. This is Sonoma Views, and you are on the YouTube channel. I really appreciate the fact that you're here. Talk to you soon.